evening, everyone. You can't do that. You can't do that. Do you remember the last time someone said that to you? Do you remember how it felt? I mean, I distinctly remember the first time someone said that to me. I was a kid, I was just a toddler. And true story, I would eat dirt from my mom's favorite planter. I knocked that thing over so many times. She would glue it together again and again because she loved the planter, I loved the dirt, and she'd say, "Sweetie, stop, you can't do that." I was stubborn. I distinctly remember also the first time that I heard those words as an adult. I was a junior in college, and I was working for the summer at the ABC affiliate in Biloxi, Mississippi. It was my first week on the job, and I was shadowing the top reporter. And he turns to me, and he says, "Kathleen, I don't think you can do this. You don't really have what it takes to make it in the news business. I think you should consider doing something else. You can't do that." We hear those words so often, and for so many reasons. You can't do that. You're too young. You can't do that anymore. You're too old. You can't do that. You don't have the money. Or my personal favorite, you can't do that. You're just one person. Now, the "you can't do that," so I get it. I understand them. They're well-meaning. They really care. They want to spare us pain and frustration. They think they know what's best. But the problem is that you can't do that. They don't understand the power of one. The power of one passionate individual with a calling, determined to listen to the voice in here instead of the voices out there. Well, as I said, I'm stubborn and maybe not a good listener, so I didn't listen to him. I ended up pursuing a career in television news and ended up covering a lot of the top beats, wonderful beats, the White House, the Pentagon, Capitol Hill, aviation, but I found that I always gravitated toward the renegades, toward those people who took that proverbial road less traveled, because they inspired me. They saw problems and they sought solutions, creative solutions. They didn't walk away. And every time I was around them, they fed that voice in here. One of them, let's start with Susie K., a remarkable high school teacher. I interviewed her in 2005. Susie K., when she graduated, went to teach at H.D. Woodson High School in Northeast Washington, D.C., one of the roughest neighborhoods in the nation's capital. And when Susie arrived, she found she had bright, ambitious students full of promise. But very few of their parents had ever gone to college. And they had no mentors and very little money. So Susie decided to have a basketball tournament to send 4 kids to college. And then she decided to get some business leaders in town to act as mentors. That snowballed into an organization called Hoop Dreams that over a 13-year period managed to send 1,000 Washington, D.C. inner city students to college. You can applaud. Bob Barron. Bob Barron, really fascinating man who I interviewed in 2003. Bob's first career was at the CIA, where he was the disguise master. Okay? The disguise master, just like on Mission Impossible. He made the false faces, the fake noses and ears, intricate, perfect disguises for our country's top intelligence agents. And he was the best, because he had to be. I mean, lives depended on it. When Bob retired, a lot of folks thought, you know, he's got a great career ahead of him. He's going to go right to Hollywood, make a fortune doing special effects makeup, you know, for the movies, hobnobbing with the rich and famous stars and directors. And then Bob went to a medical conference, and he saw people with faces and hands ravaged by cancer, accidents, a lot of burn victims, and children, little children born with birth defects that often left them missing one or both ears. And Bob knew. He knew he could help them. And so instead, he opened an office in Virginia, in Ashburn, where since 1993, he has helped make more than 1,000 people whole again. You can applaud. I gotta tell you, it was a tad creepy walking into his office. I mean, he has drawers full of noses and ears and eyeballs, and his cupboards are packed with faces and hands. It's kind of like a human spare parts department. And then there's Barb Stegman, fabulous Canadian woman. I met her just about 1.5 years ago. This is her friend Trevor Green, her best friend. And Trevor was serving in the Canadian military in Afghanistan, working in a village to help bring fresh water and health care to them. Unfortunately, the Taliban paid a young man to break into the meeting he was having and attack him with an axe. Well, Trevor nearly died. And of course, the attack ended his military career, but Barb was determined not to also let it end his commitment to helping the people of Afghanistan. And she thought, what can I do? What can one woman who grew up in a trailer in rural Nova Scotia, one of 2 daughters of a single mom on welfare, what can I do? But Barb did her research, and she found out about a farmer in Afghanistan who was struggling growing legal crops like roses and orange blossoms while farmers around him were thriving, growing poppies for opium, for drugs. And she realized what he was growing, those would be perfect crops to turn into perfume. So Barb found investors, and she launched her own line of perfume that currently sells 3 different varieties that use crops that are only grown in war-torn or struggling countries like Afghanistan and now Haiti. So, I mean, remarkable, inspiring people. And she definitely deserves a round of applause. And I always love being around them because when I'm around them, I feel like anything is possible. But I have to confess that I lost my faith in the power of one and in just about everything else. In 2005, when Hurricane Katrina hit the Gulf Coast and flattened most of it, including my Mississippi hometown, Bay St. Louis, and the house that I grew up in, and most of my friends and neighbors' houses as well. And I was in Mobile, Alabama when the hurricane roared in, reporting from there, and the next day when we made it to Mississippi, and I saw the debris fields in some places that towered over my head, that stretched as far as the eye could see. I felt like an ant trying to move a mountain. I mean, what could I do? Everywhere I turned were people I knew, people I had grown up with who had lost everything. And they were in pain and suffering. And I knew that anything I did would disappear like a thimble full of help in an ocean of need. I didn't know where to turn. But then I looked around me, and I saw the residents climbing out of the rubble and helping each other, sharing what little they had left. You know, Mississippi is 50th in the nation in income, but it leads the country in one area. I'll bet you'll never guess. Thoughts? How about per capita philanthropy? The people who have the least give the most. And then I saw the volunteers who came pouring south by the hundreds of thousands, more than 1 million to date, to the Mississippi Gulf Coast alone, to help people they had never met in towns they'd never heard of. And I realized, yes, one ant alone can't move a mountain. I got it. But hundreds of thousands of ants together can. It just takes one to start. So on March 11th last year, when I saw these images like this, the coverage, we all saw it, of the earthquake and tsunami in Japan, I knew I had to do something. Because the images were so similar to what I had seen at home on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. We were hit by 30-plus foot storm surge. The Japanese tsunami in places was about the same size. And I thought, what can I do? I saw so many scenes that flashed me back to the Gulf Coast. I saw people walking through the rubble in Japan and looking around them, trying to find something they recognized, anything, a structure. And I realized they were experiencing what the people on the Gulf Coast did. They were lost in their own hometowns because the buildings, the landmarks, even the street signs were gone. And I saw people reaching down and picking up photos out of the ruins and wiping off the mud and peering intently, trying to recognize just one face, because they realized that just as the people did on the Gulf Coast after Katrina, that in the tsunami zone, items like that now were more rare and precious than gold. So all around the world, people were collecting money, and that's so important at a time like this. That's really one of the best things that you can send. But I thought, what else can I do that's different? How can I share what I've learned in Mississippi? And then I remembered the letters. Letters arrived by the thousands on the Gulf Coast after Katrina. One teenager, Sabrina Bradford, stuck in my mind what she said to me. She lived in Bay St. Louis, and she said, the letters were a special kind of comfort. They meant more than almost anything else we received, because they let us know we hadn't been forgotten. And so I thought, that's it. That's it. So I launched a year ago Words of Hope for Japan. And it was a nationwide effort to collect caring letters of support for the survivors in Japan. Now, I did not know what I was doing, let me tell you. A big transition for a television journalist. I've never done anything like this before. I didn't know if anyone would write. I thought all I could do was try. I'll try, and if it doesn't work out, then it wasn't meant to be. So I started spreading the word. And a woman in Atlanta reached out to me, a Japanese woman, and she said, I'll help you. I will translate the letters. I'm like, okay, there could be a lot. And she said, that's okay. If there are, I'll get help. And in the end, Asako Akaya Ferguson ended up recruiting 200 volunteer translators around the world who translated every single letter. Here in Maryland, I had lots of volunteers. In particular, I really appreciated the ones who helped me staple those translations after we printed them all out to every single letter. And we received, I will tell you, nearly 6,000 letters, cards from all around the US, Canada, Mexico, and even South Korea. So, it ended up ballooning into the nation's largest letter writing campaign to help the Japanese. And the letters poured in from kids who couldn't write. They would draw pictures. Thousands came from schools, from colleges, from scout troops. got a lot from individuals, from churches, from civic groups like Rotary clubs. I in particular loved how some little children would write a little note on the bottom they didn't know anything about Japan, but they thought this will show I care. And one wrote, P.S. I love ninjas. And another wrote, I like teriyaki chicken. But this letter is one of those that came from the Gulf Coast. And I've got to read this one to you because the people on the Gulf Coast, they really understood. And this was what I wanted to do, was make this connection. It's from grandmother in Ocean Springs, Mississippi. For months, you never heard the sound of a bird. I miss that most of all. There were times when we thought we would never have a normal life again. We learned so much from it, however. You can live with a small amount of food each day. Water is very precious. Family and friends are most important. And God loves us. I don't have any money to send you, but I send my love and concern and prayers and hope. You can recover with God's help. This woman didn't have any money to send, but that letter was priceless. And I'm happy to say that the letters have really made a difference. Here in the United States, they meant so much. I think in particular to children who couldn't write a big check to the Red Cross, because it gave them a way to connect, to show their caring and empathy for thousands of Japanese who had lost everything. It meant so much to the translators as well, because they were Japanese and it gave them a way to help their fellow countrymen. In Japan, the letters were distributed by the Japanese American Citizens League when they arrived in Tokyo. It was actually an extraordinary effort getting them there. We also got UPS donated the shipment for the first box. Then a company in Pittsburgh sent me a $250 check to send the second box over, and it just kind of snowballed from there. So when the letters got to Japan, and the JACL was delivering them, this is the result. I have to tell you the story behind this. This was on the 4-month anniversary of the earthquake and tsunami. It was in July. And these are children in Iwaki City. They had just a few moments earlier been standing facing the water, mourning. They're standing where their school used to be and where their homes used to be. All gone now. And Cora Williams with the JACL and Direct Relief International walked up to them as they turned away from the water. And he started passing out these cards with peace signs and rainbows and hearts and flowers. And you can look at these faces. Look at those faces. And some were distributed to a town called Ogatsu, also heavily damaged. I don't have a picture from the town, but these are some folks who live in a nearby town who also received letters. And the volunteer who took the letters to Ogatsu, she said she took some to a man who owned a kimono shop, and the kimonos had been just heavily damaged by the surge, by the tsunami. The building was still standing, so he actually was one of the few who could reopen, could start over, but he was so discouraged. Most of the town was gone, most of the residents, and he had just planned to shutter the shop and walk away. But then the letters arrived. And the volunteer who gave one to him, she said, it turned everything around. He was so encouraged that he decided to clean every single kimono, to reopen his shop and help breathe life back into his struggling city. And then some of the people in the United States who wrote letters actually got responses which we did not expect. Deborah Camp Clifton in Missouri received a letter from a woman in Ishinomaki City. Again, another area flattened by the earthquake and tsunami. And the woman told her the letter made her smile and feel very strong. It let her know that she had wonderful friends all around the world. So, when you hear those, you can't do that, and you will, because we all do, I want you to remember the difference that one person made to thousands of inner city kids who without her may have had no future, to hundreds of patients whose bodies are now whole, to farmers in Haiti and in Afghanistan who are now thriving, making a legal living, and to thousands of Japanese who may have lost everything, but they now know that they're not forgotten, and they never will be. Because of my experience now, my goal is to find ways to connect, find new, creative ways to connect communities that are flattened by disasters. Because they learn so much, they have so much to share with one another. So they can share these lessons learned and speed each other's recoveries. I gotta tell you this, I'm already hearing that you can't do that. People are saying, you can't do that, at least not quickly or easily. Now quickly, I want you to turn to the person next to you and tell them one goal, one hope, one dream, something you're passionate about, something you want to accomplish. You have 30 seconds. All right? Go ahead. I'll give you a minute. All right, are we ready? And now, all together, out loud to each other, because you believe it, let's say it. You